Now you don't have to be the translator of this machine as an end customer. Suddenly, there's an expert always knowing the condition of that car and helping you out. I think that's a reassuring thing as an end customer.
Vehicle data has changed how workshops earn customer loyalty. And Jakob Filippson, Vice President of Product at Connected Cars, has been working with this problem for nearly a decade now. So thank you for joining us, Jakob.
Thank you very much.
What does a proactive morning look like for a service advisor?
It's a good question. So I think one example could be, imagine you open up your ConnectedWorkshop and you see here a list of 5 customers where the 12-volt battery is at a critically low level, meaning that the cars can't necessarily start. And it might be that the customers already discovered this because they went into their car, but it might also be that they've just started their morning and they're going to work in 30 minutes, only to discover that they can't start their engine. So think of this service advisor calling out to these customers and saying, "Hey, have you tried turning on your car? Because I would reckon that you probably can't start your engine because the 12-volt battery is too low. It's getting cold outside. Maybe you left something open, or something lit on." And suddenly, that customer can then maybe arrange a taxi or some alternative, meaning that they won't get late to work, for example, because they got this proactive call. I think it's instead of the customers calling you and saying, "I can't start your car," and then you're like, "Oh, well, you run around headless." This is flipping it on its head. It's providing that sort of very, very proactive and relevant communication to the end customer. So that's, I think, one example of a use case where we flip it on its head.
So why does reactive service still matter once a workshop has gone proactive?
Even though the workshop has fully adopted this sort of proactive way of working, there will continue to be a lot of these reactive customer inquiries, right? I mean, there are also a limit to what telematics can detect, but it could be a scratch on a bumper or whatever on the side of the car that the customer would like to get a quote on know how much it would cost to fix, for example. But it could also be, there's this weird noise or anything like that, which doesn't necessarily trigger a warning light in the car. So they might reach out, a little bit concerned. And then what this technology also offers is that you can go and look into the details of the car and see, for example, DTC codes in much more, it's much more rich information about the car's condition that is not necessarily shown to the end consumer. So that also gives that dealership that sort of the expert role in this relationship, and they're able to maybe comfort or reassure the customer that they can drive on, but we might need to take a look, and I can see that maybe in 20 days you're supposed to have service anyways, so should we just add this to that work order, book you in already, and then we can have a look. And then you're taking away a lot of the cognitive load of the customer and really helping them out. So I think reactive patterns will continue to be there, but I think having that extra data set can help you put yourself in the situation of the customer and create a much better experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like it improves the efficiency for the customer who doesn't need to come in twice. And also maybe for the workshop, they have the DTC fault codes, so they can start planning ahead of time with all the necessary tools and steps and parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does that really look like if we were to walk into a workshop right now? What would we notice that's different?
So I think some of the parts that would be different is that whenever people contact you, obviously you don't have necessarily any real data about the vehicle's condition. So all you have is the information you get over the phone. And I mean, car owners are not necessarily experts in vehicle maintenance or vehicle conditions. So you're kind of asking them to become the translator of this machine somehow and conveying what is wrong with it. So obviously you can try and put words on what lights you're seeing in the dashboard, but even there, people don't necessarily know what they're called. So they might describe it as, you know, a man with a football in his lap, for example. Service advisor looks over, you know, what could that lamp be? You know, it's the airbag lamp, for example. And then what? Like, you don't necessarily have any underlying data to know what exactly triggered that lamp. You get it in, you don't necessarily know exactly what spare parts you need to prepare for. So the customer might need to hand in the car only to come back the next day. But that might be annoying for the customer, obviously. If there's no rental car, you know, what are you going to do? So as you can see, like, this whole reactive thing, you know, not knowing about what's coming into your operations as a dealership creates a lot of uncertainty and difficulty to plan. So if we flip it around and suddenly the workshop has an overview of all these vehicles that has certain errors in a prioritized order, the conversation is flipped on its head. So the dealership calls the customer saying, hey, dear customer, I can see you have you know, a yellow engine lamp in your car. I can also see it has something to do with the soot level building up in your particle filter or something. I would recommend you probably just drive some longer trips, maybe. Could be one. Or that you stop your engine until we can have a better look, and I might send roadside assistance to you. I'll make sure I have a rental car readily available. And you should expect, you know, this amount of time for the car to be fixed, this amount of cost. And suddenly, you know, it's a very different customer experience. You feel, you know, taken care of in a much different way. And seen from the dealership side, you're able to plan your operations to a much greater extent. And even, you know, upsell certain things. If you can see other error codes popping up, like, I don't know, the battery in your key fob is low, that you might just offer for free to exchange, but it's a good experience for the end customer, ultimately creating loyalty to the brand.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great examples of how that informed empathy can generate loyalty. You're able to see things that's wrong with the car. And
yeah, exactly, at a distance. And it suddenly, you know, now you don't have to be the translator of this machine as an end customer. Suddenly, you know, there's an expert always, you know, knowing the condition of that car and helping you out. I think that's a reassuring thing as an end customer.
absolutely, they're proving they're experts in the moment. They're showing, like, you see a light, don't you? Well, I can tell you what's wrong.
And I would also add to that, maybe especially in commercial fleet vehicles, where uptime matters a lot. And whenever a car is taken out of operations, it's lost revenue, and your customers might get angry at you and so on. So especially in the commercial vehicle segments, this is, you know, an extremely nice feature to be able to offer your customer.
What can a workshop do with predictive data that it couldn't do at the proactive stage?
As I write in the article, there's different types of data input. So, you might have these sort of written customer survey stuff that you send out after a visit. You might have the vitals of the car, so to speak. You know, there's this is the fuel level right now, this is the AdBlue level, this is a real-time odometer, and so on. Then you have the error event kind of data. You know, whenever there's something wrong, there's this signal that, hey, this is a car worth looking into. And then there's the sort of more computational data input, where we try and predict into the future what might actually break in the future. I think it's one of the more difficult ones to actually pull off as a company, because, I mean, after all, how would a customer resonate with you calling and saying, hey, in 500 kilometers, this part is going to break, and you don't see anything now, but it will. I'm sure of that. So I think the way that that you can go about that is, for example, you might be able to change a small part in a module, which prevents the bigger module to break down, meaning it's a lot less costly exercise to do. And it saves you probably a lot more time also, because you do it preemptively. And it might even be part of some of these service and repair agreements that you subscribe to as a customer. So then it feels actually just as, good service that you're able to sort of switch smaller parts in opposed to when everything breaks. So I think that's one example of a more sort of predictive measure.
What are some of the challenges that workshops might face when they're trying to go from reactive to proactive?
Probably the biggest change here is that sort of paradigm shift of going from reactive to proactive in the way you interact with your customers. So I think service advisors, who probably is our core user of our ConnectedWorkshop product, is really motivated by making, converting an dissatisfied customer into a satisfied customer. That's what they live for. So when people come in, they have a problem, you fix it, and then they go out as a very happy customer. That's what makes their day. So changing that into sort of you're calling up a customer and you don't necessarily know if they have noticed this in the car. So it just feels like a little bit of a barrier of entry as a service advisor to start calling up. But I think it's a matter of getting used to it, getting the hang of it, getting what's the first thing you're gonna say, how you're gonna approach the customer, and you get to learn it quite quickly. So I think it's a way of like overcoming this burden. And I think maybe some of the successful examples we've seen is that you centralize it somehow around a few people that become really good at it. They climb up the learning curve, and then really become good at interacting proactively with the customers. Also, I mean, there's some markets that have these customer interaction centers. They are obviously very skilled in reaching out to customers, and that's also a best practice, I would say, in terms of working proactively with data.
You touch on a lot of like soft skills that might be hard to quantify or put in the system, but are those plus the data and the system, you can really have some effective outreach.
And I think it's also important that you keep that empathy.
Right.
You speak from the outset of the customer situation and really try and put yourself into the shoes, even though you are much more advanced technically in knowing what the vehicle's condition is, but you sort of use that skill set and try and help the customer with their problems.
Yeah. And then you can imagine a customer trusting that workshop more after they have these experiences where they feel like they're being taken care of and that they really have their best interest in mind. And
yeah, for sure.
And finally, where does ConnectedWorkshop fit in this loyalty equation?
Yeah. So I think where the digital loyalty engine that I write about in the article is sort of, you could call it the theoretical framework behind all this. It creates that playing field, that overview of the different types of customer interaction. Then ConnectedWorkshop is the materialization of that. That's where you, as a service advisor, main interface towards your customers. That's where you see the data. That's where you can act proactively or reactively and have all the data at the fingertips to help you streamline your operations and really create that excellent customer experience that ultimately leads to higher customer loyalty. So I think ConnectedWorkshop is your go-to tool for customer loyalty.
Thank you for your valuable insights, Jakob. And thank you very much for joining us today. The full article, The Digital Loyalty Engine Turning Data into Loyal Customers, is in the comments.